Me. When can I start? The bus arrived before he could reply, and I spent the entire ride home with my heart pounding, half convinced I'd made a terrible mistake. When I finally climbed the stairs to my apartment, my phone buzzed again. Sebastian, tomorrow, 9 a.m., the address on my card. James will pick you up at 8:30, dress professionally. And Sophia? Welcome to your new life. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sebastian's intense gaze across the dinner table, heard his voice promising honesty and protection. I got up twice to look at the clothes hanging in my closet, trying to figure out what dress professionally meant when you were working for someone like Sebastian Moretti. I finally settled on a charcoal gray pencil skirt and a burgundy blouse, paired with black heels that I'd worn to interviews in what felt like another lifetime. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked almost like the old me, the confident woman who'd worked at a prestigious law firm before Marcus had destroyed everything. James arrived at exactly 8:30, the black Mercedes gleaming in the morning sun. Several of my neighbors were outside, and I felt their eyes following me as James opened the door with the same professional courtesy he'd shown on Sunday night. "Good morning, Ms. Bennett," he said. "Mr. Moretti is looking forward to seeing you." The drive downtown took us to a high-rise in the Loop, all glass and steel and obvious wealth. James pulled into an underground parking garage, using a key card to access a private elevator that opened directly into a penthouse office suite. The space took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Chicago, the morning light flooding across dark hardwood floors and modern furniture that managed to look both elegant and comfortable. Abstract art adorned the walls, originals, I suspected, not prints. And in the center of it all, behind a massive desk made of what looked like reclaimed wood, sat Sebastian. He rose as I entered, moving around the desk to greet me. Today he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent, his dark hair perfectly styled, his presence somehow even more commanding than it had been at the restaurant. "Sophia," he said, and again that voice sent warmth curling through my belly. "I'm glad you decided to accept my offer." "I'm still not entirely sure why I did," I admitted. His mouth curved in that slight smile I was beginning to recognize. "Because you're smart enough to recognize an opportunity when you see one. Come, let me show you your office." He led me through the suite to a smaller but still impressive office with its own window view. A desk, computer, filing cabinets, all the tools I'd need. It was roughly 10 times nicer than my cubicle at Henderson & Associates had been. "This is yours," Sebastian said, watching my reaction. "You'll manage my legitimate business interests from here. Scheduling, vendor relations, property management coordination. I'll need you to liaise with my accountant, my lawyers, and various contractors." He handed me a tablet. "This contains all the information you'll need to start. Passwords, contacts, current projects." I took the tablet, its weight solid and real in my hands. "And the less legitimate interests?" "You'll never be asked to involve yourself with those," Sebastian said firmly. "I meant what I said, Sophia. Your work here will be completely above board. You'll never be asked to do anything illegal or even questionable. That's not what I need from you." "Then what do you need from me?" I asked, meeting his eyes. Something intense flashed in his gaze before he controlled it. Competence, loyalty, honesty. He paused. And perhaps, eventually, trust. A woman appeared in the doorway, 30s, impeccably dressed, with sharp eyes that assessed me quickly. "Mr. Moretti, your 9:30 is here." "Thank you, Angela." Sebastian turned back to me. "Angela is my executive assistant. She'll help you get oriented today. If you need anything at all, you can ask her or contact me directly." He moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne again. "I have meetings most of the day, but I'll check on you this afternoon." In the meantime, make yourself comfortable. This is your space now." After he left, Angela spent the next 2 hours walking me through systems, explaining filing protocols, and introducing me to the various people I'd need to coordinate with. She was efficient, professional, and clearly devoted to Sebastian in a way that suggested years of loyal service. "He doesn't usually hire people this quickly," she observed over coffee in the break room, which was nicer than most restaurants I'd eaten in. "You must have made quite an impression." "I'm not entirely sure how," I admitted. Angela studied me with those sharp eyes. "Mr. Moretti values authenticity above almost everything else. He's surrounded by people who tell him what they think he wants to hear. Someone who speaks honestly, even accidentally." She smiled slightly. "That would definitely catch his attention." The morning flew by in a blur of passwords and procedures. The work itself wasn't difficult. In fact, it was exactly the kind of organizational management I'd excelled at before. But the scale was different. Sebastian's legitimate holdings were extensive. Restaurants, import businesses, real estate properties. All of it needed coordination, and all of it apparently was now my responsibility. Around 1, Angela knocked on my door. "Lunch is here. Mr. Moretti thought you might be too busy to go out." A catered lunch had been delivered to a small conference room, far more food than I could possibly eat alone. I was debating whether to ask Angela to join me when Sebastian appeared in the doorway. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the empty chair. "It's your conference room," I pointed out. "But your lunch hour," he countered, sitting down anyway. "How's your first morning going?" "Overwhelming," I admitted, "but good. The work itself is familiar, just bigger." "You'll handle it," he said with complete confidence. "Angela said you're already reorganizing the vendor files. That's exactly the kind of initiative I need." We ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Sebastian spoke again. "I want to address something before it becomes an issue. People will make assumptions about our relationship, about why I hired you, what you're doing to earn your salary." Heat flooded my face. "Oh." "They'll be wrong," he continued, his voice firm. "But the assumptions will be made nonetheless. I want you to be prepared for that. And I want you to know that you have my full support in shutting down any inappropriate comments or behavior. You're here because you're good at what you do, not for any other reason. And if I have questions about the other parts of your business," I asked carefully. "The parts you said I wouldn't be involved with." Sebastian set down his fork, giving me his full attention. "Then you ask, and I'll decide how much to tell you. Some things are safer for you not to know, Sophia. Not because I don't trust you, but because knowledge can be dangerous. I'd rather keep you protected." "By keeping me ignorant?" I challenged. "By keeping you safe," he corrected. "There's a difference." He leaned forward. "Look, I know this situation is unusual. I know you're probably questioning your decision to come here. But I need you to understand something. Once you're under my protection, you stay under my protection. Which means I make decisions about your safety, even if you don't agree with them." The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. "That sounds like control," I said quietly. "It is," he agreed without hesitation. "But it's control exercised for your benefit, not mine. I have enough people to control, Sophia. What I want from you is partnership. Someone I can trust to handle important work without constant supervision. Someone who understands that my world requires certain accommodations." "And what do I get in return?" I asked, emboldened by his honesty. Sebastian's smile was slow and devastating. "Security, respect, a salary that will allow you to live somewhere safe, eat something other than diner food, stop worrying about every dollar." He paused. "And my protection, which in this city is worth more than you might think. A knock on the conference room door interrupted us. A man I didn't recognize stood there, his expression urgent. "Boss, we have a situation. The shipment from—" He stopped abruptly, noticing me. Sebastian's expression hardened. "Not now, Marco. I'll deal with it in 20 minutes. Marco nodded and disappeared. Sebastian turned back to me, his expression softening again. "I should go, but Sophia, you did well today. Better than well. I'm glad you're here." After he left, I sat alone in the conference room, picking at my food without really tasting it. What had I gotten myself into? This morning I'd been a waitress struggling to pay rent. Now I was sitting in a luxury office suite, working for a man who was probably a criminal, eating catered Italian food, and feeling more alive than I had in months. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. "You think you're special? You're just another one of his projects. He'll get bored and you'll be back at that diner within a month. Or worse." Ice flooded my veins. I stared at the message, my appetite vanishing completely. Who would send this? And how did they have my number? I forwarded the message to Sebastian without thinking, my hands shaking slightly. His response came within seconds. "Sebastian, ignore it. Petty intimidation from people who don't matter, but forward me any other messages like that immediately. Me. Who would do this? Sebastian. People who don't like that I've taken an interest in you. People who want to see me fail. Don't let them get in your head, Sophia. You're exactly where you're supposed to be." I wanted to believe him. But as I returned to my office and tried to focus on vendor contracts, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd stepped into something far more complicated than a simple job. That evening, James drove me home in the same black Mercedes. The contrast between the luxury of Sebastian's world and my shabby Rogers Park apartment had never been more stark. As I climbed the stairs to my studio, exhaustion and adrenaline warring in my system, I found an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a lease agreement for an apartment in Lincoln Park, one of Chicago's nicest neighborhoods. A note in bold, masculine handwriting accompanied it. "Your current living situation is unacceptable. This apartment is safe, spacious, and 5 minutes from the office. The lease is in your name, rent paid for 6 months. Consider it a signing bonus. S." I should have been angry at his presumption. I should have marched back downstairs and called him to say I couldn't accept such an extravagant gift. Instead, I found myself reading through the lease agreement, looking at the photos of the apartment. Hardwood floors, updated kitchen, actual bedrooms separate from the living space, a building with a doorman and security. My phone rang. "Sebastian." "Before you argue," he said without preamble, "consider this. You can't do your job effectively if you're exhausted from lack of sleep in an unsafe building. You can't focus if you're worried about making rent. This isn't charity, Sophia. It's a practical business decision." "A practical business decision that involves paying 6 months of rent in Lincoln Park?" I challenged. "I take care of my people," he said simply. "And whether you've fully accepted it yet, you're mine now, which means I ensure you have what you need to succeed." "Yours," I repeated, testing the word. "That's the second time you've said that." "Because it's true," Sebastian replied, his voice dropping lower. "You accepted my offer, you walked into my office, you let James drive you home. You're in my world now, Sophia, and in my world, I protect what's mine." I sank onto my worn couch, the lease agreement heavy in my hands. "This is moving very fast." "Yes," he agreed, "because I see what I want, and I don't waste time pretending otherwise. You can say no to the apartment. You can keep living in that studio with the broken lock and the neighbors who play music until 3 a.m., but you won't, because you're too smart to refuse something that makes your life better out of stubborn pride." "You're very sure of yourself," I said, echoing my text from the day before. "I'm sure of you," he corrected. "I'm sure that you're tired of struggling. I'm sure that you deserve better than what you've had. And I'm sure that you're brave enough to accept help, even from someone like me." After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment for a long time, the lease agreement on my lap. Through my thin walls, I could hear my neighbors arguing, music thumping from somewhere above. The radiator clanked its violent protest. And I made my decision. The next morning, I called the number on the lease agreement and scheduled a move-in date for the weekend. When I arrived at the office, there was a coffee on my desk, a vanilla latte from the cafe near my old apartment, the one I used to stop at every morning before I couldn't afford it anymore. A note beside it read, "To new beginnings. S." I picked up the coffee, its warmth seeping into my hands, and walked to Sebastian's office. His door was open, and he looked up as I entered, a question in his dark eyes. "Thank you," I said simply. "For the coffee, for the apartment, for giving me a chance when I didn't think I deserved one." Sebastian rose from his desk, moving around it to stand before me. He was close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough that his cologne wrapped around me like a physical presence. "You deserve far more than you think, Sophia," he said softly. "And I intend to prove that to you, every single day." His hand lifted, and for a moment I thought he might touch my face. Instead, he simply adjusted the collar of my blouse, a gesture that was somehow both intimate and professional. "Now go to work," he said, stepping back. "Those vendor contracts won't organize themselves." As I returned to my office, coffee in hand and heart racing, I realized that Sebastian Moretti had done something I hadn't thought possible. He'd made me feel hopeful about the future again. Whether that made me brave or foolish, I wasn't sure yet. But I was beginning to suspect I didn't care. Moving day arrived with unexpected efficiency. I'd assumed I would be loading my meager belongings into boxes and calling for a rideshare to transport them across the city. Instead, I woke Saturday morning to a text from James, informing me that a moving crew would arrive at 10, and that Sebastian had arranged for everything to be handled professionally. "You don't have to do this," I'd texted back, knowing even as I typed that the protest was futile. Sebastian's reply was immediate. "I know I don't have to. I want to. There's a difference." The moving crew arrived at exactly 10 o'clock. 3 men in matching uniforms who packed my entire life into boxes with practiced ease. It was almost embarrassing how little I had to move. My secondhand furniture wasn't worth transporting, so they focused on clothes, books, a few sentimental items from my grandmother. The whole process took less than 2 hours. James drove me to the new apartment in Lincoln Park, and when I walked through the door, I found it already furnished. Not with generic rental furniture, but with pieces that looked expensive and carefully chosen. A plush sofa in soft gray, a coffee table made of glass and chrome, a dining set for 4. The bedroom contained a queen bed with a wrought iron frame and linens that felt like silk under my fingers. "Mr. Moretti thought you might need some basics to start with," James explained, his expression carefully neutral. "If anything isn't to your taste, Angela has the contact information for the interior designer." I walked through the apartment in a daze, touching surfaces that didn't feel real. The kitchen had been stocked with essentials: coffee, bread, eggs, basics I would need. The bathroom contained expensive toiletries, plush towels, everything coordinated in shades of white and cream. It was like walking into a life that belonged to someone else. "This is too much," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was talking to James or to myself. "Mr. Moretti doesn't do anything by halves," James replied. "He wanted you comfortable." After the movers had arranged my boxes in the second bedroom that would serve as an office, and James had departed with instructions to call if I needed anything, I stood alone in my new apartment and tried to process what had happened. 1 week ago, I'd been working at Murphy's Diner, struggling to pay rent on a studio with broken heating. Now I was standing in a luxury apartment in one of Chicago's most expensive neighborhoods, working a job that paid more than I'd ever earned, under the protection of a man who operated in shadows, but had shown me more consideration than anyone in my previous respectable life. My phone rang. "Sebastian." "Do you like it?" he asked without preamble. "It's beautiful," I admitted. "But Sebastian, the furniture alone must have cost—" "Don't," he interrupted gently. "Don't calculate the cost or feel obligated or guilty. I told you, I take care of what's mine. This is me taking care of you." That word again. Mine. I should have bristled at the possessiveness, at the implication that I belonged to him like property. Instead, I felt something warm unfurl in my chest, something that felt dangerously like belonging. "I don't know how to thank you," I said quietly. "You already are, by accepting it, by letting me do this." His voice dropped lower. "By trusting me, even though every logical part of your brain is probably screaming that you shouldn't." He wasn't wrong. Every rational thought told me this was too much, too fast, too dangerous. But another part of me, the part that had been lonely and hurt and exhausted for so long, was whispering that maybe, just maybe, this was exactly what I needed. "Are you busy tonight?" Sebastian asked, breaking into my thoughts. "I was planning to unpack," I said, looking around at the boxes stacked in the spare bedroom. "The boxes will still be there tomorrow. Have dinner with me instead. There's something I want to show you." I should have said no. I should have maintained some boundaries, some distance. But I found myself agreeing before I could think better of it. James picked me up at 7, and this time the drive took us out of the city, north along the lakefront. The November evening was cold and clear, the city lights giving way to darker suburbs and eventually to an area I didn't recognize. We turned onto a private road that wound through bare trees, eventually emerging at a house that took my breath away. It wasn't a mansion exactly, though it was certainly large, but it was the setting that stunned me. Perched on a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan, all stone and glass and dramatic architecture that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. Warm light spilled from the windows, and I could see a fire burning in what appeared to be a massive stone fireplace. "Where are we?" I asked as James opened my door. "Mr. Moretti's personal residence," he replied. "He's waiting for you inside." The front door opened before I could knock, and Sebastian stood there in casual clothes, dark jeans and a gray sweater that somehow looked as expensive as his suits. His feet were bare, and his hair was slightly mussed, as if he'd been running his hands through it. The informality made him look younger, more approachable, though no less commanding. "Welcome," he said, stepping aside to let me enter. "Thank you for coming." The interior was as stunning as the exterior suggested. High ceilings with exposed beams, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, furniture that managed to be both elegant and comfortable. But it was the personal touches that caught my attention. Books scattered on tables, a chess set mid-game on a side table, framed photographs of people who must be family. This wasn't a showplace. It was a home. "You live here alone?" I asked, following him through the space. "Most of the time. I have staff who come during the day, but I prefer privacy in the evenings." He led me to the kitchen, where something delicious was simmering on the stove. "I hope you don't mind, but I thought we'd eat here tonight rather than going out. I wanted to talk without an audience." The kitchen was massive but somehow intimate, with a center island and professional-grade appliances. Sebastian moved around it with surprising ease, checking whatever was in the oven, stirring a pot on the stove, pouring wine into glasses. "You cook?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "My mother insisted all her children learn," he said with a slight smile. "She said it was barbaric to be helpless in a kitchen. So yes, I cook. Not as well as professional chefs, but adequately." He handed me a glass of red wine, and I took it automatically, watching as he plated food with practiced movements. Chicken marsala, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. The domesticity of the scene was jarring. This was a man who reportedly ran a criminal empire, and here he was making dinner like any normal person on a Saturday night. We ate at the island rather than the formal dining table I'd glimpsed in another room, and the conversation flowed easily. Sebastian asked about my day, seemed genuinely interested in whether the apartment met my needs, wanted to know if I had everything I required. It felt almost like a normal date, except that normal men didn't live in houses like this, or have drivers named James, or inspire the kind of fear I'd seen in Marco's eyes during that interrupted lunch meeting. After dinner, Sebastian led me to the living room, where the fire I'd seen from outside crackled invitingly. We settled onto a large sectional sofa with our wine, the lake a dark presence beyond the windows. "Why did you really bring me here?" I asked, deciding that Sebastian's own commitment to honesty deserved reciprocation. He was quiet for a moment, studying the wine in his glass. "Because I wanted you to see this place. To understand that what I do, who I am, isn't just about power or money or control. This is what I'm building toward. Something real. Something that matters." He looked at me. "And I wanted you to see it because I'm hoping you might want to be part of that future." My heart stuttered. "Sebastian." "I know it's too soon," he continued, holding up a hand. "I know you barely know me. I know that by all conventional logic, you should run as far from me as possible. But Sophia, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that first message. The honesty, the fire, the refusal to accept less than you deserve. You're the first real thing I've encountered in years, and I'm not willing to let that go." I set down my wine glass with trembling hands. "You're talking like we're in a relationship, but we've had 2 dinners. 3, if we count tonight," he corrected with a slight smile. "But you're right. We're not in a relationship. Not yet. But we could be, if you're willing to take that risk." "Risk," I repeated. "That's exactly what this is, isn't it? Being with you would mean accepting all the darkness that comes with your world. The danger, the illegality, the constant looking over my shoulder." "Yes," he said simply. "I won't lie to you about that. Being with me comes with risks, but it also comes with protection unlike anything you've known. You'd never have to worry about money or safety or being vulnerable again. You'd have resources, security, a partner who would move heaven and earth to keep you safe." "A partner who operates outside the law," I pointed out. "A partner who operates in shades of gray that most people prefer to pretend don't exist," he corrected. "I'm not asking you to participate in anything illegal, Sophia. I'm asking you to accept that I do what I do, and that I'm not going to apologize for it or change." I stood abruptly, needing distance, needing air. I moved to the windows, staring out at the dark lake. Behind me, I heard Sebastian rise and approach, felt his presence at my back. "Tell me about Marcus," he said quietly. "Tell me what he did to make you so afraid of trusting again." The question caught me off guard. "You already know about Marcus. You investigated him." "I know the facts. I want to know how it felt. What it did to you." I wrapped my arms around myself, the memories bitter. He made me feel special. Chosen. He'd take me to nice restaurants, buy me gifts, talk about our future together. His business partner, who was actually his wife, I met her 3 times and never suspected. He was that good at lying. My voice cracked. When I found out, when I confronted him, he didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He just looked annoyed, like I was being unreasonable for expecting honesty. Sebastian's hands settled on my shoulders, warm and solid. "And that's why my honesty matters to you. Why you're willing to consider this despite every logical reason to run. Yes, I whispered. You're dangerous and probably criminal and definitely not someone I should be with. But you've never lied to me. Not once. You've been clearer about your intentions than any respectable man I've ever dated. He turned me around to face him, his dark eyes intense in the firelight. I will never lie to you, Sophia. I will never pretend to be something I'm not. What you see is what you get. The good, the bad, and everything in between. And right now, what you're seeing is a man who wants you more than he's wanted anything in a very long time. The confession hung between us, raw and honest. I could feel the heat of his body, smell his cologne, see the want in his eyes that he wasn't bothering to hide. And I realized that I wanted him too, despite everything. Maybe because of everything. I'm scared, I admitted. Scared of making another mistake. Scared of getting hurt again. Scared of what being with you might mean. Good, Sebastian said, surprising me. Fear means you're thinking clearly. It means you understand the stakes. His hand lifted to cup my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. But let me ask you something, Sophia. Which scares you more? Taking a chance on me, or spending the rest of your life wondering what might have been? Before I could answer, his phone rang. He ignored it, his attention focused entirely on me. It rang again, insistent. You should get that, I said softly. Frustration flickered across his face, but he stepped back and pulled out his phone. His expression darkened as he read the screen. I need to take this. I'm sorry. Stay here, I'll just be a moment. He moved to another room, and I heard his voice through the door, speaking rapid Italian in tones that ranged from sharp to cold, to deadly calm. When he returned 15 minutes later, his expression was carefully controlled, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. Is everything okay? I asked. A business complication, he said vaguely. Nothing for you to worry about. But something you need to deal with, he nodded reluctantly. Yes. I'm sorry, Sophia. This isn't how I wanted this evening to go. It's fine, I said, and meant it. This was the reality of his life. Interrupted dinners, urgent calls, complications that required his immediate attention. If I was going to be part of his world, I needed to accept that. James can drive me home. Let me walk you out at least. At the door, Sebastian took both my hands in his. Think about what I said tonight. About us. About the possibility of building something real together. You don't have to decide now. But I need you to know that I'm serious about this. About you. I will. I promised. Think about it, I mean. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that sent heat racing up my arm. Thank you for coming tonight, for being here, for giving me a chance. On the drive back to the city, I stared out the window, my mind spinning. The evening had been perfect. Too perfect. The beautiful house, the home-cooked meal, the raw honesty of his confession. Sebastian was offering me everything Marcus had pretended to offer. Security, partnership, a real future. The difference was that Sebastian was completely transparent about who and what he was, while Marcus had been nothing but lies. But accepting Sebastian meant accepting his world. The danger, the illegality, the constant awareness that the man I cared for lived outside conventional morality. Could I do that? Could I be with someone whose business dealings likely included things I didn't want to imagine? When I arrived home, and it was starting to feel like home, this beautiful apartment that Sebastian had given me, I found a package waiting outside my door. Inside was a first edition of my favorite novel, one I'd mentioned casually during dinner on our first date. A note in Sebastian's handwriting accompanied it. For the woman who deserves beautiful things, even when she doesn't believe it yet. E.S. I carried the book inside, running my fingers over the leather binding, and admitted to myself what I'd been avoiding since that first mistaken text message. I was already falling for Sebastian Moretti. Despite the danger, despite the complications, despite every logical reason to walk away. The question was whether I was brave enough to let myself fall completely. Sunday passed quietly. I unpacked boxes, arranged my books on the built-in shelves, tried to make the apartment feel like mine rather than a beautiful space I was borrowing. Sebastian texted periodically, nothing demanding, just checking in, asking if I needed anything, sending photos of his house's lake view at sunset. The domesticity of it all was surreal. This powerful, dangerous man sending me sunset photos like any new boyfriend would. Monday morning, I arrived at the office to find Angela waiting with an urgent expression. "Mr. Moretti needs to see you immediately." My stomach dropped. "Is something wrong?" "I'm not sure," she admitted. "But he's been in his office since 6, and he's been making a lot of calls." I knocked on Sebastian's door, my heart racing. When he called for me to enter, I found him standing at the window, his posture rigid with tension. He turned as I entered, and I was struck by how exhausted he looked, as if he hadn't slept. "Close the door," he said quietly. I did, fear clawing at my throat. What's happened? The complication from Saturday night. It's escalated. He moved to his desk, pulling out a folder. There's a rival organization making moves into territory I control. They're being aggressive about it, and they've made it clear they're not interested in negotiating. "What does that mean?" I asked, though I suspected I didn't want to know. "It means there's going to be conflict. Potentially significant conflict." His eyes met mine. "And it means you need to be even more careful than usual. These people don't play by rules, Sophia. They won't hesitate to use you against me if they think it will give them an advantage." Ice flooded my veins. "Use me how?" "Any way they can. Intimidation, kidnapping, worse." He moved around the desk to stand before me. "I have increased your security. You won't see them, but there will always be people watching, keeping you safe. James will drive you everywhere, no exceptions. And I need you to promise me that you'll be vigilant. Any unusual contact, any strange messages, anything that feels off, you tell me immediately." I thought of the threatening text I'd received on my first day. Is this because of me? Because you hired me? "No," he said firmly. "This has been brewing for months. You're just caught in it because you're associated with me now." His hands settled on my shoulders. "I'm sorry, Sophia. I knew there were risks, but I didn't expect them to escalate this quickly. Maybe I should quit," I heard myself say. "Go back to—" "No." The word was sharp, almost harsh. "That won't keep you safe now. They already know about you. Leaving my protection would only make you more vulnerable." His grip tightened slightly. "You're safer with me than without me. I promise you that." "This is insane," I whispered. "I sent one wrong text message, and now I'm caught up in some kind of criminal war." "I know," Sebastian said. And for the first time since I'd met him, I heard something like regret in his voice. "I know this isn't what you signed up for. If I could change it, if I could make you safe without tying you to me, I would. But the reality is that you're in my world now, and that means you need my protection whether we're together or not." The implication was clear. Choosing him or not choosing him was no longer the question. I was already committed, whether I'd meant to be or not. "So what do I do?" I asked. "You live your life. You come to work. You trust that I'm doing everything in my power to resolve this situation." His hand lifted to cup my face. "And you let me protect you, even if that means accepting restrictions you don't like." Over the next week, I learned what Sebastian's protection actually meant. James was always there, arriving exactly when he said he would, waiting patiently for however long I needed. When I went to the grocery store, I spotted the security following at a discreet distance. My new apartment building's doorman suddenly knew my name and watched the entrance with extra vigilance. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt oddly comforting. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt truly safe. The work itself became a refuge. Organizing Sebastian's legitimate business affairs gave me something concrete to focus on, something I was good at. Angela and I developed an easy working relationship, and I started to understand the scope of what Sebastian had built. He wasn't just a criminal with some legitimate businesses as fronts. He was a genuine businessman who also operated in gray areas when necessary. The distinction mattered, though I couldn't quite articulate why. Friday evening, as I was preparing to leave for the weekend, Sebastian appeared in my doorway. "Dinner tonight? My place. I promise no interruptions this time." I should have maintained distance. I should have used the current crisis as an excuse to keep things professional. Instead, I found myself nodding. "I'd like that." This time, the drive to his house felt familiar. James and I chatted about the weather, the traffic, inconsequential things that made me feel almost normal. When we arrived, Sebastian was waiting at the door again, and the smile that transformed his face when he saw me made something warm bloom in my chest. Dinner was simpler this time. Pasta he'd made himself, fresh bread, a salad. We ate by the fire again, and the conversation flowed even more easily than before. He told me about his sisters, about his mother who still called every Sunday despite disapproving of his choices, about his father who'd built the empire Sebastian now ran. "Did you ever want something different?" I asked. "A different life?" "When I was younger, yes," he admitted. "I thought about law school, about going legitimate completely. But then my father got sick, and the business needed someone to run it. Family is everything in my world, Sophia. When family needs you, you step up. Even if it means giving up your own dreams?" "The dreams evolved," he said simply. "I found meaning in what I do, even the parts that exist in shadows. I protect people who can't protect themselves. I create order in chaos. That matters, even if it's not conventional." After dinner, we moved to the sofa, and this time when Sebastian sat beside me, he was close enough that our thighs touched. The contact sent electricity through me, awareness of him thrumming under my skin. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice serious. "The situation I mentioned earlier, it's been handled. The rival organization has backed down, at least for now. You're safe." Relief washed through me. "How did you—" I stopped, realizing I didn't actually want to know the details. "Best you don't ask," Sebastian confirmed, reading my hesitation. "But it's over. You can breathe again." "I'm not sure I ever stopped holding my breath," I admitted. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. "I know this week has been difficult. I know you've had doubts about whether being in my world is worth it. But Sophia, I need you to understand something. This is the worst of it. The danger, the restrictions, the constant awareness. Most of the time, my life is relatively peaceful. What happened this week was an anomaly." "But it could happen again," I pointed out. "Yes," he agreed. "It could. That's the risk you take being with me. But I promise you, I will always put your safety first. Always." I turned to face him fully, needing to see his eyes. "And what about us? Where do we go from here?" Sebastian's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, the gesture both soothing and arousing. "That depends on you. I've been clear about what I want. You, fully, without reservations. But I understand if you need more time, more certainty. I'm a patient man when it comes to things that matter." "You're not patient at all," I contradicted, a smile tugging at my mouth. You saw what you wanted, and you went after it with terrifying single-mindedness. Fair point, he conceded, his own smile appearing. But I can be patient when necessary. I can wait for you to be ready, Sophia. I can wait for you to trust me completely. I thought about the past 2 weeks. The job, the apartment, the protection, the honesty. Sebastian had given me more consideration and respect than anyone in my supposed respectable life ever had. He'd been clear about his flaws, transparent about his world, unwavering in his commitment to my safety. What if I don't want to wait? I heard myself say. His eyes darkened. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm tired of being cautious. I'm tired of protecting myself from being hurt. I'm tired of denying that I feel something for you. I took a deep breath. I'm saying yes, Sebastian. Yes to whatever this is between us. Yes to taking the risk. Yes to you. For a moment, he simply stared at me, as if he couldn't quite believe what I'd said. Then he moved, his hand sliding into my hair as he pulled me toward him. The kiss was everything I'd imagined, and nothing like I'd expected. Demanding but tender, passionate but controlled. He kissed me like I was precious, like I was something he'd been waiting for his entire life. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sebastian rested his forehead against mine. You're sure about this? About me? Because once you're mine, Sophia, I don't let go easily. I'm sure, I whispered, and realized I meant it completely. His smile was fierce and triumphant. Then you're mine. Officially, irrevocably mine. And I'm going to spend every day proving that I'm worthy of that gift. He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I felt the last of my resistance crumble. I was all in now, for better or worse. And somehow, against all logic and reason, I believed we'd find a way to make it work. After all, I'd already learned that sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected mistakes. And sending that angry text to the wrong number might have been the best mistake I'd ever made. The next morning, I woke in Sebastian's bed wrapped in sheets that felt like liquid silk, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the lake. For a moment, I lay perfectly still, trying to process the enormity of what had happened. I'd crossed a line last night that couldn't be uncrossed. I'd committed myself to Sebastian Moretti fully, knowing exactly who and what he was. The space beside me was empty but still warm. I could hear water running somewhere in the house, could smell coffee brewing. The domesticity of it all made my heart ache in the best possible way. A soft knock at the door preceded Sebastian's entrance. He was already dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, his hair damp from a shower, and he carried 2 mugs of coffee. The sight of him made my breath catch. This powerful, dangerous man bringing me coffee in bed like any normal boyfriend would. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm with satisfaction. "I wasn't sure how you took your coffee, so I brought cream and sugar." He gestured to the tray he'd set on the nightstand. I sat up, clutching the sheet to my chest, suddenly shy despite everything we'd shared the night before. "Just cream, thank you." He prepared my coffee with careful attention, then settled on the edge of the bed beside me, his free hand finding mine. "How do you feel?" "Like my entire life changed overnight," I admitted. "Which I suppose it did. Regrets?" The question was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he watched my face for any sign of retreat. "No," I said, and was surprised to find it completely true. No regrets. Nerves, maybe. Uncertainty about what comes next. But not regret. Relief softened his features. "Good. Because I meant what I said last night, Sophia. You're mine now, and I take care of what's mine." He paused. "Which brings me to something we need to discuss. The serious tone made my stomach clench. That sounds ominous. Not ominous, practical. He set down his coffee and turned to face me fully. My world operates differently than what you're used to. There are expectations, protocols, things you need to understand about being with me publicly. Publicly, I repeated, the word feeling strange. People will know you're mine, Sebastian said simply. That's not something I hide or keep secret, and that means you'll be treated with a certain level of respect and deference. But it also means increased scrutiny. People will watch you, judge you, make assumptions. I thought of Angela's comment about Sebastian not usually hiring people quickly, about the threatening text I'd received. People already are making assumptions. Yes, but now those assumptions will be confirmed. His thumb traced circles on my wrist. I need you to be prepared for that. For the questions, the looks, the gossip. And I need you to trust that I'll handle anyone who crosses the line from curiosity to disrespect. The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent heat curling through my belly. How exactly do you define crossing the line? His smile was dangerous. Anyone who makes you uncomfortable in any way. Anyone who treats you as anything less than what you are. My partner, deserving of respect. Your partner, I tested the words. Is that what I am? That's exactly what you are, Sebastian confirmed. In all ways that matter. My work, my life, my future. You're part of all of it now. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. And I'm part of yours. Which means if anyone from your past tries to contact you, tries to cause problems, I want to know immediately. You mean Marcus? I said flatly. I mean anyone who might think they have a claim on you or a reason to hurt you. His eyes held mine. Marcus already knows to stay away. But there might be others. Friends, acquaintances who don't approve of your choices. I need to know about all of it. The level of control he was outlining should have sent me running. But I'd learned over the past 2 weeks that Sebastian's control came from a place of protection, not domination. He wanted to keep me safe, even if his methods were unconventional. Okay, I agreed. Full transparency. About everything. Satisfaction flickered in his expression. Good. Now I have something for you. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and my heart stuttered. Sebastian. It's not what you think, he said, opening the box to reveal not a ring but a delicate bracelet. White gold, I thought, with small diamonds set in an intricate pattern. This is a tracker, he explained, seeing my confusion. Subtle, beautiful, but functional. If you're ever in trouble, if you ever need me, you press this clasp 3 times quickly. It sends an alert directly to my phone with your exact location. I stared at the bracelet, torn between appreciation for the thought behind it and discomfort at the implication. You want me to wear a tracking device? I want to be able to find you if something goes wrong, Sebastian corrected. The situation from last week is resolved, but there will be other complications, other moments when my world creates risks for you. This gives me peace of mind, and it gives you a direct line to me, always. He lifted the bracelet from the box and fastened it around my wrist with careful fingers. It was beautiful, I had to admit. Nothing about it screamed tracking device. It simply looked like expensive jewelry, the kind of thing a wealthy man might give his girlfriend. His girlfriend. Is that what I was now? I know it's a lot to take in, Sebastian said, reading my thoughts with that unnerving accuracy. The restrictions, the security, the constant awareness. But Sophia, this is the reality of being with me. I need to know you're safe. I need to be able to reach you. Can you accept that? I looked at the bracelet glinting in the morning sunlight, then at Sebastian's face, the concern there, the genuine care beneath the dominance. Yes, I said finally. I can accept it. As long as you understand that I'm not helpless. I'm not some fragile thing that needs constant supervision. I know you're not, he said, surprising me. You're one of the strongest people I've met. But strength doesn't mean you have to face danger alone. Let me be your backup, Sophia. Let me be the person who ensures you never have to feel vulnerable again. After breakfast, which Sebastian insisted on cooking himself, despite my offers to help, James drove me back to my apartment so I could change clothes and prepare for the week ahead. The drive gave me time to process everything that had happened in the past 12 hours. I'd crossed a threshold. I was Sebastian Moretti's girlfriend now, his partner. The word still made me shiver. That came with perks I was only beginning to understand, but also with complications I probably couldn't fully anticipate. My phone buzzed with a text. Sebastian. Already missing you. Ridiculous, I know, but true. The simple confession made me smile. For all his power and control, there was something almost vulnerable in his need to express his feelings immediately, as if afraid I might forget between his house and my apartment. Me. Not ridiculous. I miss you too. Sebastian. Dinner tonight? I want you to meet someone important to me. Me. Who? Sebastian. My mother. She's been asking questions about why I've been distracted lately. I'd like to introduce you properly. My stomach flipped. Meeting his mother felt significant, official. It was one thing to accept being Sebastian's girlfriend in private, quite another to be presented to his family. Me. Are you sure that's a good idea? We've only been together one night. Sebastian. We've been building toward this for 2 weeks, and I don't do casual, Sophia. When I commit to someone, my family knows about it. Besides, she'll love you. Me. How can you be sure? Sebastian. Because you're real. Because you chose me knowing exactly who I am. Because you're the first woman I've brought home in 3 years. Trust me, she'll be thrilled. The revelation that I was the first woman he'd introduced to his mother in years should have increased my anxiety. Instead, it made me feel special, chosen. Sebastian didn't do things lightly. If he was bringing me to meet his mother, it meant he was serious about us in ways that went beyond physical attraction or convenience. Me. Okay. What should I wear? What should I expect? Sebastian. Wear whatever makes you comfortable. She's coming to my place, so it's casual. And expect a lot of questions, some probably inappropriate. She's Italian and doesn't believe in boundaries, but she means well. That evening, I stood in front of my closet trying to figure out what one wore to meet a mob boss's mother. I finally settled on a navy dress that was elegant, but not too formal, paired with simple jewelry, except for the bracelet Sebastian had given me that morning, which I hadn't taken off. James picked me up at 6, and during the drive, he offered unexpected advice. Mrs. Moretti can be intimidating, but she's kind at heart. She just wants to know her son is being treated well. That's what I'm afraid of, I admitted. What if she thinks I'm not good enough for him? James met my eyes in the rearview mirror. Ms. Bennett, if I may be frank, Mr. Moretti is happier than I've seen him in years. His mother will see that immediately. She'll love you because you make her son smile. The word settled some of my nerves, though my heart still raced as we pulled up to Sebastian's house. He was waiting at the door again, and the way his face lit up when he saw me made my breath catch. You look beautiful, he said, pulling me into an embrace that felt both possessive and comforting. Are you ready for this? No, I admitted, but I'll do it anyway. He laughed, pressing a kiss to my temple. That's my girl. Come on, she's in the living room. Sophia Moretti was nothing like I'd expected. I'd imagined someone severe and intimidating, matching the steel in Sebastian's personality. Instead, I found a petite woman in her 60s with warm brown eyes and a genuine smile, dressed elegantly, but not ostentatiously. She rose as we entered, her gaze assessing me with maternal scrutiny. "Mama," Sebastian said, his voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. "This is Sophia Bennett. Sophia, my mother, Sophia Moretti." "Another Sophia," she said with delight, moving forward to take my hands in hers. "Sebastian didn't mention we shared a name. That's a good omen, don't you think?" Her accent was stronger than Sebastian's, her English colored with Italian rhythms. "It's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Moretti," I managed. "Please, call me Sophia. Mrs. Moretti makes me sound old." She studied me with those warm eyes, and I felt myself being evaluated on levels I couldn't fully comprehend. "You're very pretty. Sebastian didn't mention that either, but I suppose he wouldn't. He keeps his cards close." "Mama," Sebastian warned, but there was affection in his tone. "What? I'm not allowed to compliment your girlfriend?" Sophia turned back to me. "Come, sit with me. Tell me about yourself. Sebastian said you work for him, but I want to know more than that." Over dinner, which Sebastian had catered from one of his restaurants since he'd admitted to being too nervous to cook with his mother watching, Sophia peppered me with questions. Where was I from? What did my parents do? How had Sebastian and I met? The questions were invasive by any normal standard, but delivered with such warmth that I found myself answering honestly. I told her about my parents' deaths, about my grandmother raising me, about my previous job and the betrayal that had led me to leave. I found myself explaining about Marcus, though I left out the most humiliating details, simply saying he'd lied about his situation. Sophia's eyes darkened. "Men who lie to women are cowards," she said firmly. "My Sebastian, he has many flaws. Don't give me that look, Figlio, you know it's true. But he does not lie. What you see is what you get with him." "I've learned that," I said softly, glancing at Sebastian. "It's one of the things I appreciate most about him." "You appreciate him?" Sophia repeated, her eyes sharp. "That's an interesting word choice. Do you love him?" "Mama!" Sebastian's voice was sharp now. "What?" "It's a fair question. You bring home a girl for the first time in 3 years. I want to know if she has feelings for you beyond appreciation." Heat flooded my face. We'd only officially been together for 24 hours. How could I answer a question about love when I barely understood my own feelings? "I care about him very much," I said carefully. "More than I expected to, more than might be wise given how quickly this has all happened. But yes, I have real feelings for Sebastian." Sophia studied me for a long moment, then nodded as if satisfied. "Good. Because my son has feelings for you too, even if he hasn't said so yet. I can see it in how he looks at you, how he positions himself near you, how he softens when you speak. It's been a long time since I've seen him like this." After dinner, Sophia claimed exhaustion and asked James to drive her home. At the door, she hugged Sebastian tightly, whispering something in Italian that made him smile. Then she turned to me. "Take care of my boy," she said, pulling me into an unexpected embrace. "He's stronger than he looks, but he needs someone who sees him. Really sees him. I think you do." After she left, Sebastian pulled me into his arms, holding me close. "That went better than I could have hoped. She likes you." "How can you tell?" I asked, my voice muffled against his chest. She asked incredibly invasive questions and basically demanded to know if I loved you. "That's how I can tell," Sebastian said with a laugh. "If she didn't like you, she would have been polite and distant. The interrogation means she approves." Over the next few weeks, I settled into a rhythm that felt both surreal and natural. My days were spent managing Sebastian's legitimate business interests, work that I found genuinely fulfilling. Angela became not just a colleague, but something like a friend, teaching me the unwritten rules of Sebastian's world with patient efficiency. My evenings were split between Sebastian's house by the lake and my apartment in Lincoln Park. He never pressured me to stay when I wanted my own space, but I found myself spending more and more nights with him. Waking up beside him, cooking breakfast together, the quiet domesticity of our mornings before work. It all felt startlingly normal despite the abnormal circumstances of our relationship. Sebastian introduced me to other people in his life gradually. His sisters, Isabella and Francesca, who video called from their respective cities and welcomed me with warmth that seemed genuine. His nephew, Sophia's grandson, who came for Sunday dinners and treated Sebastian with a mix of awe and affection. Even some of his business associates, though those introductions were more formal, characterized by careful respect and assessment. I learned the unspoken hierarchy of his world, the people who worked for him directly versus those who were allies, the ones who could be trusted completely versus those who required careful watching. Angela explained it all with the patience of someone who'd navigated these waters for years. The key thing to remember, she said over coffee one afternoon, is that loyalty is everything in this world. Once Sebastian gives you his trust, he'll move mountains for you. But betray that trust, even in small ways, and there's no coming back. The warning wasn't lost on me. I'd seen flashes of the ruthlessness beneath Sebastian's tender treatment of me, the cold way he dealt with business problems, the finality in his voice when discussing people who'd crossed him. I had no illusions about what he was capable of. But I also saw the man behind the reputation, the way he called his mother every Sunday without fail, the scholarship program he funded anonymously for underprivileged kids, the loyalty he showed to people who'd been with him for years. Sebastian Moretti was a complicated man, but he wasn't the monster the newspapers sometimes painted him as. One evening, about 6 weeks into our relationship, I was working late at the office when Sebastian appeared in my doorway. His expression was troubled, his usual composure fractured. "We need to talk," he said, and my stomach dropped. He closed the door and sat across from my desk rather than beside me, which felt ominous. "There's a situation developing, a federal investigation into some of my business dealings." Ice flooded my veins. "What kind of investigation?" "The kind that asks questions about money laundering and racketeering," Sebastian said bluntly. "My lawyers say it's exploratory at this point, that they don't have anything concrete, but it means increased scrutiny on everyone associated with me." "Including me," I realized. "Including you," he confirmed. "They'll look at your hiring, at your salary, at our relationship. They'll try to find something they can use to pressure you into testifying against me." "I would never," I started. "I know," he interrupted gently. "I trust you completely, Sophia. But I need you to be prepared for what's coming. Federal agents asking questions, maybe subpoenas, pressure to cooperate in exchange for immunity from charges you haven't committed." The reality of his world crashed over me. This wasn't just about accepting that my boyfriend operated in gray areas. This was about potentially facing federal prosecutors, about being caught between loyalty to Sebastian and legal jeopardy. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted. Sebastian rose and came around the desk, pulling me to my feet and into his arms. "You tell them nothing without a lawyer present. You invoke your Fifth Amendment rights if necessary, and you trust that my legal team will protect you just as fiercely as they protect me." "I'm scared," I admitted against his chest. "I know. I'm sorry." His arms tightened around me. "If I could shield you from this completely, I would. But this is the price of being in my world, the risks I warned you about from the beginning." I pulled back to look at him. "Do you regret it, bringing me into your life?" "Never," he said fiercely. "You're the best thing that's happened to me in years, Sophia. I just wish I could give you all the benefits of being with me without any of the costs." "That's not how life works," I said, finding strength I didn't know I possessed. Nothing worthwhile comes without risk. You taught me that. His kiss was deep and desperate, and I tasted fear beneath the passion. Fear that this investigation might take me away from him, might force me to choose between my safety and our relationship. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Whatever happens, we face it together. Agreed? Agreed, I promised. That night, lying in Sebastian's bed with his arms around me and moonlight silvering the lake beyond the windows, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. A mistaken text message sent in anger had led me to this man, this life, this complicated love that defied all logic. I should have been terrified by the federal investigation, by the potential consequences of loving Sebastian Moretti. Instead, I felt oddly calm, because I'd learned something important over the past 2 months. Sometimes the wrong number turns out to be exactly the right one, and whatever storms were coming, we'd weather them together. The federal investigation hung over us like a storm cloud that refused to break. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. No agents showed up at my door, no subpoenas arrived, no phone calls demanding cooperation. The waiting was almost worse than action would have been, the constant anticipation keeping my nerves stretched taut. Sebastian tried to maintain normalcy, but I could see the strain and the tightness around his eyes, the way he checked his phone more frequently, the late-night calls he took in Italian, his voice low and urgent. He was preparing for battle, marshaling his resources, protecting his interests, protecting me. "You need to take a break," Angela said one afternoon, finding me staring blankly at my computer screen. "You've been working nonstop for 2 weeks. When's the last time you did something that wasn't work or worry?" "I can't remember," I admitted. She pulled out her phone and texted someone, then looked at me with determination. "You're leaving early today. Sebastian's orders, which I just arranged. He's taking you somewhere tonight." "What? Where?" "Not my job to tell you. Just go home, put on something nice but comfortable, and be ready by 6. I wanted to argue, but the truth was that a break sounded wonderful. The constant anxiety was exhausting, and I'd been neglecting everything except work and Sebastian. I couldn't remember the last time I'd simply relaxed. James drove me home, and I found a garment bag hanging on my apartment door with a note in Sebastian's handwriting. "For tonight. Trust me. Some." Inside was a dress I'd admired weeks ago during a lunch break. I'd pointed it out in a shop window to Angela, saying wistfully that it was beautiful, but far too impractical for my life. Deep emerald green, elegant, but not overly formal, with a cut that would flatter my figure. Sebastian had been paying attention to details I hadn't even realized he'd noticed. I showered and dressed carefully, taking time with my makeup and hair in a way I hadn't in weeks. The woman who looked back at me from the mirror seemed more confident than the one who'd been serving coffee at Murphy's Diner just 3 months ago. Sebastian had done that, given me back a sense of self-worth that Marcus had nearly destroyed. At exactly 6 o'clock, James buzzed from downstairs. But when I emerged from my building, it wasn't the familiar Mercedes waiting. Instead, a sleek sports car idled at the curb, deep blue and undeniably expensive. And behind the wheel, dressed casually in dark jeans and a black sweater, was Sebastian. "You're driving?" I asked, surprised. I'd never seen him drive himself anywhere. "Tonight I am," he said, getting out to open my door with old-fashioned courtesy. "Tonight is about us, not business. No drivers, no security hovering in the background. Just you and me." "But is that safe?" I asked, thinking of the investigation, of the increased scrutiny. "My security is following at a distance," Sebastian assured me. "Close enough to respond if needed, far enough to give us privacy. Get in, Sophia. Let me take you somewhere." The car's interior was all leather and technology, and when Sebastian started the engine, it purred like a contented predator. He drove with the same controlled confidence he brought to everything else, navigating out of the city and north along the lakeshore. "Where are we going?" I asked as the city lights faded behind us. "You'll see," was all he'd say, his hand finding mine on the center console. We drove for nearly an hour, the sky darkening to deep purple, stars beginning to emerge. Finally, Sebastian turned onto a private road that wound through bare winter trees, emerging at a small clearing overlooking Lake Michigan. A cabin sat nestled among the trees, not the rustic shack the word suggested, but an elegant retreat of wood and glass that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. "What is this place?" I asked as Sebastian parked. "Mine. I bought it years ago as a retreat, somewhere completely separate from everything else. No one knows about it except James and my lawyer, not even my mother." He turned to face me, his expression serious. "I wanted to bring you here because this is the one place in my life that's completely clean. No business, no complications, no shadows. Just peace." The vulnerability in his admission made my chest tight. Sebastian, who controlled so much, who revealed so little, was showing me a piece of himself he'd shared with no one else. Inside, the cabin was warm and welcoming. A fire crackled in a stone fireplace, candles cast soft light, and I could smell something delicious cooking. A table had been set for two near the windows, offering a view of the moonlit lake. "You did all this?" I asked, taking in the careful attention to detail. "I wanted tonight to be perfect," Sebastian said, helping me out of my coat. "The past few weeks have been difficult. I've watched you worry, seen the strain this investigation is causing, and I hate it. I hate that my world is putting shadows in your eyes." He cupped my face in his hands. "Tonight, I wanted to remind you why we're fighting for this, why it matters." Dinner was perfect. Steaks he grilled himself, roasted vegetables, a chocolate dessert that melted on my tongue. We ate slowly, talking about everything except the investigation and business. He told me about learning to cook from his grandmother, about summers spent at a villa in Italy before his father fully entered the family business. I told him about my dreams of traveling, places I wanted to see that I'd never been able to afford. "We'll go," Sebastian said with quiet certainty. "Anywhere you want. Italy, France, Greece. After this investigation resolves, we'll take a month and just disappear." "A month?" I repeated, trying to imagine taking that much time away. "Why not? I'm the boss. I can arrange my schedule however I want." His smile was crooked. "And I can think of nothing I'd like more than having you all to myself, somewhere beautiful, with no interruptions." After dinner, we moved to the sofa near the fire, and Sebastian pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me. The position was protective and possessive all at once, and I found myself relaxing into him completely. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice rumbling against my back. "The investigation. My lawyers think they know who's behind it." I tensed. "Who?" "A prosecutor named Catherine Walsh. She's been building a career on taking down organized crime figures, and apparently, I'm her next target." He paused. "She's good, Sophia. Very good. And she's determined. Can she actually build a case against you? Possibly. If she can flip the right people, get them to testify." His arms tightened. "That's why I need you to understand something. If federal agents come to you, if they pressure you to cooperate, I want you to do whatever you need to do to protect yourself, even if that means giving them information about me." I twisted in his arms to face him. "I would never—" "Listen to me," he interrupted, his voice firm. "I've lived this life knowing the risks. I made my choices with open eyes. But you didn't sign up for this, not really. You sent a text to the wrong number and ended up in my world. If protecting yourself means cooperation, I'll understand." "You're saying you'd forgive me for testifying against you?" I asked, stunned. I'm saying I'd rather lose my freedom than put you in danger, Sebastian said quietly. I'm saying that you matter more to me than my pride or my empire. And I'm saying that if it comes to a choice between your safety and my loyalty, I choose you every time. Tears burned my eyes. In his world, loyalty was everything. For him to offer me an out, to explicitly give me permission to protect myself even at his expense, it was the ultimate expression of love, even if he hadn't used that word. I'm not going to testify against you, I said firmly. I'm not going to cooperate. We face this together, remember? That's what we agreed. Sophia. No, I interrupted, pressing my fingers to his lips. You don't get to make this decision for me. I chose you, Sebastian. I chose this life, and I'm not abandoning you the moment things get difficult. That's not who I am. Something fierce and bright burned in his eyes. You're sure? Because once you commit to this, once you refuse to cooperate, there's no going back. They'll treat you as an adversary, not a potential witness. I'm sure, I said without hesitation. Whatever comes, we face it together. He kissed me then, deep and desperate, and I tasted relief and gratitude and something bigger than either of us. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you, he said, the words raw and honest. I've loved you since that first message, when you were honest and angry and utterly yourself. I love you, Sophia Bennett, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of that gift. I love you too, I whispered, the truth of it settling into my bones. I love you despite every logical reason not to. I love you because of every illogical reason that matters. We made love by the firelight, slow and tender, sealing our promises to each other with touch and breath and whispered words. And afterward, wrapped in blankets with the fire burning low and the lake a dark presence beyond the windows, I felt more certain of my choice than I'd felt about anything in my life. The federal investigation came to a head 2 weeks later. Catherine Walsh herself appeared at Sebastian's office, flanked by 2 agents, armed with a subpoena demanding financial records. Sebastian's lawyers materialized immediately, calm and professional, negotiating terms and timelines with the efficiency of people who'd done this before. I watched from my office as the confrontation unfolded, my heart in my throat. Walsh was exactly as Sebastian had described, sharp, determined, confident in her case. She noticed me watching and approached, her agents staying back. Sophia Bennett? She asked, though she clearly already knew. Yes. I'd like to speak with you. Not officially, not yet. Just a conversation. Ms. Bennett won't be answering questions without her attorney present, Angela said, appearing at my elbow like a protective guardian. She handed Walsh a business card. This is her lawyer. Any questions can be directed through him. Walsh studied the card, then me. You know what he is, don't you? What he does? I know exactly who Sebastian Moretti is, I said, finding my voice, and I know I have nothing to say to you without my lawyer. He'll drag you down with him, Walsh said quietly. When this case goes to trial, and it will, you'll be collateral damage. Unless you're smart enough to protect yourself first. I appreciate your concern, I said, keeping my voice steady, but I'll make my own decisions about my safety. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. Walsh left, but her warning echoed in my mind. She wasn't wrong that I was putting myself at risk, but she also didn't understand that some things were worth the risk. That evening, Sebastian and I sat in his home office while his lawyers explained the situation. The government had financial records, witness statements, evidence that could potentially build a case. It would take months to go to trial, maybe years. In the meantime, Sebastian's life would be under a microscope, and by extension, so would mine. We can still protect you, the lead lawyer said, directing his words to me. If you want to claim ignorance,